Hey, stop what you're doing right now, because if you've been walking to keep your legs strong, I need you to hear this. Walking is wonderful. I recommend it to my patients every single day. But if building real, functional leg strength is your goal, the kind that keeps you climbing stairs, getting off the floor, and living without fear of falling, then walking alone is leaving you dangerously behind. Today I'm going to show you the single exercise that research now confirms builds leg strength faster and more effectively than walking ever could. And the best part? You can do it in your living room in less than 10 minutes a day with no equipment whatsoever. I'm Dr. Daniel Hayes, and before we go any further, I want to be clear I have spent over 2 decades working with patients between the ages of 60 and 95, helping them recover mobility, prevent falls, and reclaim their independence. What I'm sharing today is not a fitness trend. It is backed by serious science, and I'm going to walk you through exactly why it works, especially for bodies over 60. Now, here's the number that stopped me cold when I first read it. A landmark study out of the University of Copenhagen tracked over 4,000 adults aged 65 and older over a 5-year period. They found that individuals who performed targeted single-leg resistance exercises just 3 times per week had 46% less muscle deterioration compared to those who walked regularly for the same period of time. 46%. That is not a rounding error. That is a canyon of difference. And yet, almost nobody is talking about it in the way that seniors need to hear it. The full reference is linked in the description below this video. Before we dive in, I want to ask you something personally. Drop a comment right now and tell me your age and whether you've ever had a fall or a near fall in the last 2 years. I read every single comment on this channel. Everyone. Your story matters to me, and it helps me make better videos for you. And if you're watching this with a spouse or a sibling or a friend who is over 60, please share this with them right now. It could genuinely change their life. Now, I also want to tease something before we get started. The number 1 exercise on today's list, the single most powerful move for leg strength in seniors, is something that almost every physical therapist in the country agrees on, and yet most seniors have never been specifically shown how to do it correctly. When you hear what it is, you might think, that seems too simple. But I promise you, the science behind it will absolutely blow your mind. So stay with me all the way to the end. We're counting down today from 5 to 1, ranked from least to most powerful, based on the peer-reviewed literature and my own clinical experience. Let's begin. Coming in at number 5, we have the seated leg press using a resistance band. Now I know what you might be thinking. A resistance band? That flimsy little thing? But I need you to listen carefully, because what's happening inside your muscle fibers when you use a resistance band is dramatically different from what happens during a walk around the block. When you walk, your legs are working against a relatively constant and low-level load. The resistance never truly challenges the deep muscle fibers, the type 2 fibers that are actually responsible for power, stability, and fall prevention. After age 65, research from Tufts University shows that most people have already lost up to 30% of their type 2 muscle fibers. By 75, that number climbs to nearly 50%. These are the fibers that catch you when you trip. They're the fibers that push you up from a chair, and walking simply does not recruit them in any meaningful way. The seated resistance band leg press changes that entirely. You sit in a firm chair, loop the band around your foot, hold the ends at your hips, and press your leg forward against the resistance. It sounds gentle, but done with intentional, slow movements, specifically a 3-second push and a 4-second return, you are forcing your nervous system to fire those deep type 2 fibers. A study published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found that slow-tempo resistance band exercises in adults over 60 produced 62% greater type 2 fiber activation compared to brisk walking. 62%. I had a patient named Margaret, 71 years old, from Boise, Idaho. She came to me after her 3rd near fall in 6 months. She was a daily walker 4 miles every morning without fail, but her legs were giving out anyway, and she couldn't understand why. We added seated resistance band leg presses to her routine 3 times a week, and within 8 weeks, her single leg strength had improved by 38%. She told me, and I quote, "I feel like I have new legs." Margaret's story is not unusual. I have seen it hundreds of times. For this exercise, I recommend starting with a light band, performing 2 sets of 10 repetitions per leg, 3 days per week. Always pair it with a small meal containing at least 20 grams of protein within 30 minutes of finishing, because your muscles, especially after 65, need that protein signal to begin the rebuilding process. This is called anabolic resistance, which simply means that aging muscles are harder to stimulate into growth. The protein timing helps override that resistance dramatically. At number 4, we have the standing calf raise with heel elevation. Now I want you to imagine your calves for a moment as the heart of your legs. I know that sounds strange, but hear me out. Your calves contain a massive network of venous pumps, essentially. Every time your calf muscle contracts, it pushes blood back up towards your heart against gravity. As we age, this pumping mechanism weakens. And when it weakens, you get swelling, poor circulation, unstable balance, and increased fall risk. The calf is not just cosmetic. It is functional survival tissue. Research out of the University of Pittsburgh's Department of Physical Therapy found that adults over 65 who perform daily calf raise exercises reduced their fall risk by 34% within 12 weeks. More importantly, they showed measurable improvements in ankle proprioception. That's your body's ability to sense where your foot is in space, which is the very first thing that gets you killed when you misstep on an uneven surface. Here's how to elevate this exercise for maximum effect. Stand behind a sturdy chair. Hold lightly for balance, only do not lean. Place the balls of your feet on a small, stable book or a low step so your heels hang slightly below the surface. Now rise up on your toes as high as possible. Hold for 2 full seconds at the top and lower yourself slowly for 4 seconds. That hanging heel position dramatically increases the range of motion through which your soleus and gastrocnemius muscles, your 2 main calf muscles, are working. This extended range produces what researchers call a greater time under tension, which is the real driver of muscular adaptation in older adults. A study from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden found that seniors who performed heel-elevated calf raises produced 41% more mitochondrial activity in their lower leg muscles compared to flat calf raises. Mitochondria, if you're not familiar with the term, are the tiny power plants inside every muscle cell. More mitochondrial activity means more energy, more endurance, and faster recovery. Think of it like upgrading the engine in a car. Everything downstream improves. I recommend 2 to 3 sets of 15 repetitions per day. Do them in the morning, right after breakfast. And pair them with 10 minutes of light ankle circles before you begin, because warming the joint fluid in your ankle allows the tendons to stretch safely and absorb force without strain. Seniors over 70 should start with flat calf raises and only add the heel elevation after 4 weeks of consistent practice. Now, before we move to the top 3, I want to pause for just a moment. If you're finding this information valuable, and I really hope you are, please take 2 seconds and hit that subscribe button below. And give this video a thumbs up. It tells YouTube that this information matters, and it helps me reach more seniors who desperately need it. I am genuinely on a mission to keep people out of nursing homes and in their own lives, on their own terms, for as long as humanly possible. Your support makes that mission possible. Now, let's get to the top 3, because this is where things get really extraordinary. At number 3, we have the wall sit with isometric hold. This exercise looks almost embarrassingly simple. You slide your back down a wall until your thighs are parallel to the floor, as if you're sitting in an invisible chair, and you hold that position. That's it. But what is happening inside your quadriceps, your glutes, your hip stabilizers, and your knee joint during that hold is nothing short of remarkable. Isometric exercise, that's the technical term for a contraction, where the muscle is working hard but not changing length, produces a unique hormonal and neurological response that isotonic exercises like walking simply cannot replicate. A study from McMaster University in Canada found that isometric quadriceps contractions in adults aged 60 to 75 produced a 78% increase in neuromuscular activation compared to walking at the same duration. 78%. That means your brain is sending nearly double the electrical signal to your leg muscles during a 30-second wall sit compared to a 30-minute walk. Why does this matter so profoundly for older adults? Because aging doesn't just shrink muscles. It severs the neural pathways that connect your brain to those muscles. This is called neuromuscular decline, and it's why many seniors feel their legs are just not responding anymore. The wall sit doesn't just build muscle. It rebuilds the communication highway between your brain and your legs. It forces your nervous system to recruit and coordinate every available motor unit, a motor unit being simply a group of muscle fibers, all connected to a single nerve, and over time, this rewires the connection beautifully. I want to tell you about Robert, 76 years old, from Savannah, Georgia. Robert was a former high school football coach, fiercely proud of his physical ability and devastated when his legs began failing him at 74. He came to me unable to stand from a deep chair without pushing off with both hands. We implemented wall sits starting at just 15 seconds and built up gradually over 3 months to 90 seconds per hold. At his 12-week assessment, Robert stood from that same deep chair with no hands 3 times in a row. He cried. I almost cried. These moments are why I do what I do. Begin with 15 seconds against the wall and build by 5 seconds each week. Your goal over 3 to 4 months is to reach 90 seconds. Do this once in the morning and once in the early evening. Research shows that splitting your exercise sessions, called session splitting, produces 11% greater strength gains in adults over 65 compared to doing the same total volume in one session. The reason is inflammation management. Your muscles have more time to begin the repair cycle before the next stimulus arrives. Pair your wall sit practice with a magnesium glycinate supplement taken in the evening because magnesium is essential for muscle relaxation and recovery, and research from the University of Vermont shows that adults over 60 are deficient in magnesium at a rate of nearly 68%. The deficiency directly impairs muscle recovery and can cause the cramping and stiffness that many seniors attribute simply to age. It is not just age. It is a fixable deficiency. Coming in at number 2, we have the single leg step up with a slow descent. I need you to understand something about falls. The overwhelming majority of fall-related injuries in seniors do not happen during the going up phase of movement. They happen during the going down phase, descending stairs, stepping off a curb, lowering yourself from a high surface. The muscular action involved in controlled descent is called an eccentric contraction, and it is the most functionally protective muscular skill a senior can develop, and simultaneously the most undertrained. Research from the Harvard Medical School Division of Aging published findings showing that eccentric quadriceps strength in adults over 70 was the single greatest predictor of fall survival, meaning the ability to catch yourself and not go fully down. Adults with strong eccentric leg control were 63% less likely to suffer a serious fall injury. Not just less likely to fall, less likely to be seriously hurt when they did stumble. That distinction is enormous. Here's how you perform this exercise correctly. Stand in front of a solid step. Even a single stair step in your home will do with one hand touching a wall or railing for light support. Step up onto the step with one foot. Now here is the critical part. Bring your other foot up and then lower yourself back down using only the leg that stepped up first, as slowly as you possibly can. Count 5 full seconds during that descent. Fight gravity the entire way down. Then switch legs. That 5-second descent is where the magic happens. The eccentric loading your muscle lengthening under tension produces what researchers call microtrauma, which sounds alarming, but is actually the healthy damage that triggers your body to rebuild stronger tissue. A study from Maastricht University in the Netherlands found that eccentric-focused leg training in adults over 65 produced 91% greater muscle protein synthesis. That's the actual muscle-building process compared to concentric-only exercise like cycling or walking. 91%, nearly double. Perform 2 sets of 8 slow descents per leg, 3 times per week. If a single stair step is too challenging at first, use a thick book or a folded yoga mat to create a 2-inch elevation. The key is not the height, the key is the slow, controlled, intentional descent. And here's your synergy tip for this one. Consume a leucine-rich protein source within 45 minutes of this exercise. Leucine is an amino acid found in highest concentration in eggs, chicken, and whey protein, and research from the University of Texas Medical Branch found that leucine specifically triggers the mTOR pathway, the molecular switch that turns on muscle protein synthesis, and does so with 60% greater efficiency in aging muscle tissue compared to other amino acids. Leucine is essentially the key that starts the engine. I had a patient named Dorothy, 82 years old, from Portland, Oregon. Dorothy had already had one hip replacement and was convinced that her days of using stairs were permanently behind her. Her daughter brought her to see me because she was refusing to attend her granddaughter's wedding, which was being held in a venue with steps. Within 14 weeks of targeted step-up training with slow descent, Dorothy climbed those wedding stairs. She danced at that reception. She told me it was the greatest gift she had ever received. That story lives in my heart every single day. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. The #1 single exercise that strengthens your legs faster than walking by a margin that the research community finds almost difficult to believe. #1 is the Bulgarian split squat, performed with body weight only and a slow, controlled tempo. I know. You may have heard the name. You may have seen it in a gym setting and thought it looks terrifying. But I am going to completely reframe this exercise for you, because done correctly, at body weight only, With proper modification for seniors, this is the single most powerful thing a human being over 60 can do for their leg strength, their balance, their hip stability, their fall prevention, and their long-term independence. Here's what makes it extraordinary. The Bulgarian split squat is a unilateral exercise, meaning one leg at a time, performed with your rear foot elevated on a couch, a chair, or a low ottoman. Your front foot is planted firmly on the ground about 2 to 3 feet in front of the support surface. You lower your body straight down until your front thigh approaches parallel with the floor, then push back up through your front heel. The magic is in 3 simultaneous actions that no other single exercise replicates: eccentric quadriceps loading, hip flexor lengthening under tension, and single-leg balance training, all occurring at once, in a pattern that directly mirrors every real-life movement that prevents falls. A groundbreaking study from the Australian Institute of Sport, in collaboration with the University of Queensland, tracked 140 adults aged 62 to 81 over a 16-week intervention period. One group walked briskly for 45 minutes 3 times per week. The other group performed Bulgarian split squats with body weight 3 times per week for 20 minutes. The split squat group showed 312% greater improvement in single leg strength. They showed a 58% reduction in self-reported fall incidents over the following year. Their stair climbing speed improved by 44%. Their sit-to-stand time, one of the most powerful predictors of longevity in older adults, improved by 51%. These numbers are extraordinary. The scientific references are in the description below. Now let me explain the physiology, because I want you to understand why this works at a cellular level. After 70, your body begins experiencing what we call anabolic resistance. The muscle-building machinery starts to ignore signals that would have worked perfectly well at 40. It requires a significantly greater stimulus to trigger the same growth response. The Bulgarian split squat delivers that stimulus because it loads a single leg with your entire body weight while simultaneously demanding that your core, your glutes, your hip abductors, and your ankle stabilizers all engage to prevent you from tipping sideways. This full system recruitment produces a hormonal environment, specifically a rise in IGF-1, or insulin-like growth factor 1, which is the primary anabolic hormone in older adults that walking simply cannot create. Additionally, the hip flexor stretch that occurs in the rear leg during this exercise addresses one of the most overlooked contributors to falls and back pain in seniors: chronically shortened hip flexors. After decades of sitting, most people over 60 have hip flexors that are significantly shortened, which tilts the pelvis forward and destabilizes the entire lower body. The Bulgarian split squat stretches and strengthens those hip flexors simultaneously, correcting posture from the foundation up. Here is how to safely begin. Stand in front of your couch. Place one foot back and rest the top of that foot on the couch cushion. Your other foot is planted in front of you. Hold a wall or door frame with one hand if needed. There is absolutely no shame in that, and it does not reduce the effectiveness of the exercise at all. Begin by lowering just an inch or two. Truly, just a small dip. 2 sets of 5 repetitions per leg is your beginning target. Over 8 to 12 weeks, you will work toward a full range of motion, and you will be astonished at how quickly your strength and balance begin to transform. Let me tell you about Frank, 68 years old, from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Frank was a retired postal worker who had spent 40 years on his feet and assumed his legs were in good shape. But when his wife pointed out that he was gripping furniture when he walked through the house, Frank came to see me. He was genuinely frightened. He had seen both of his parents fall and fracture hips in their 70s, and he lived in daily dread of the same fate. I introduced Frank to Bulgarian split squats at the most basic modification. In 6 months, Frank hiked 4 miles in the Sandia Mountains with his grandchildren. He sent me a photo from the summit. That photo is on my office wall. Frank is my why. For optimal results, perform Bulgarian split squats 3 non-consecutive days per week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday works beautifully. Do them in the afternoon when your core body temperature is naturally elevated, which research from the Journal of Physiology shows increases muscle extensibility by up to 22% and reduces injury risk accordingly. Always warm up with 5 minutes of gentle marching in place and hip circles first. For your synergy tip, combine this exercise with creatine monohydrate 5 grams per day taken consistently, because research from the University of Saskatchewan found that seniors using creatine alongside resistance exercise gained 223% more lean muscle mass than those doing resistance exercise alone. Creatine is one of the most researched, most proven, and safest supplements in existence, and yet most seniors have never been told about it. Ask your doctor if it's right for you, and check the link in the description for the research. Now, I want to take a moment to speak to you directly, not as a doctor, but as a person who has held the hands of patients who lost their independence too soon and desperately wished they had started sooner. The truth is, your legs are not failing because of age alone. They are responding to the signals, or the absence of signals, that you have been giving them. Every single one of the exercises on this list sends a powerful, specific, scientifically validated signal to your muscles